I think the conversation has been around for a while about debt freedom. There's been a lot of people talking about things like budgeting and saving. You were one of the first people to like publicly be a face of what's known now as FIRE, financial independence, retire early, financial independence in general. How did you come into the knowledge of there is a chance that I could do some things that would allow me to not have to wait until I'm 65 years old to retire? Because for some people, that's the only prescribed definition of retirement that we've been given. So, how did your paradigm shift, and what is your message to people who are hearing that phrase, that acronym for the first time right now?
Well, it's interesting because when I started working in 1999, I had to get into the office at 5:30 in the morning, and I wouldn't be able to leave until 7:30 because I had to connect with my colleagues in Asia. And so right then and there, for a guy who dropped calculus in college because the class started at 8 a.m., 5:30 a.m. was like torture. I just couldn't, I just realized from the very first month I couldn't last. And it was super stressful. And so what I realized also was that I needed to find an escape route, and I needed to forecast my misery because for the first month I was thrilled to have that job, right? I landed a job at Goldman Sachs in New York City. It was like winning the lottery, and every single job you get is kind of like winning the lottery because so many people vie for that job. But I knew I couldn't last beyond the age of about 40. And I saw my parents, they worked in the government, they worked until 60s, but I just couldn't last. So it forced me, a really tough job forced me to save and figure out ways to generate passive income so that by the time that I was totally burned out, I wouldn't have to continue grinding and I would have options. So in my definition, since 2009, I've been writing about this, is you're financially free when your investments generate enough passive income to cover your basic living expenses. And then anything above that is gravy. And so since that time, it's been pretty interesting to see the evolution of what the definition of financial independence is. You've seen terms such as barista fire, which is pretty cool because I thought about barista fire as well. And that is the idea of working at a coffee shop to get some supplemental income and healthcare to provide for your early retirement lifestyle. And then there's fat fire, which is basically having more money to live a multiple six figure lifestyle in retirement. And then there's coast fire, where you just coast because you have enough retirement capital that'll compound over time, so that by the time you're 60, you're good to go. So there's a big evolution since 2009, and I think it's because achieving financial independence is really difficult based on the traditional term. And so what we want to do is we come up with new terms to try to fit our situation so it can help keep us motivated to continue to save and invest.
You know what? You hear a lot if people like take their first foray into digging into financial independence, financial freedom. At times, it seems like a lot of people telling these stories are engineers, doctors, Wall Street, somebody who had a bigger shovel, so to speak. And some people automatically disqualify themselves. I'm not one of them. I was a teacher when I first started reading about this, but we still were able to do it. Some people automatically disqualify themselves. Well, I don't have that. I don't work for Goldman Sachs. What would you say to people who hear that term? Initial sparks of excitement go off, but then they start to measure. Well, I do this, and it seems like these people did that, and they start to slowly back out of consideration for their ability to be able to accomplish this. You've been doing this a long time. You've helped, like, I mean, I don't even know how many people come through Financial Samurai on a regular basis, but I know it's a whole lot. So I know you have a lot of case studies and a lot of insight. What would you say to that person that's tuned in right now to you?
Well, I want to say that it's not just for people with higher incomes. It's for everybody. So let's think about a basic concept here. If you have two paychecks every single month, so you get paid every 2 weeks. If you save one of those paychecks, you're saving 50% of your after-tax income. It's hard to do, so most people don't do it in the beginning. But as we get older, we earn more money, we get promoted and paid. And so every single paycheck you save, 50%, let's say over the course of a year, is 1 year of freedom you can buy. So what I want to encourage people to do is think in percentages, not so much absolute dollar values. Because whatever income you make, whether it's 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, or 500,000, you're forced to live within your income boundaries. Otherwise, you end up blowing up your finances by taking on too much consumer debt. Now, obviously, it's easier to save more the more you make, but we all know stories about people who make a lot of money, multi millions, and then they end up wondering where all their money went or they went bankrupt. So really, it's about a mindset. You need to believe that there are trillions of dollars out there in the world, and it is up for anybody to go out there and grab it. You deserve to be rich just as much as anybody else. I've seen so many examples. And so more than 90 million people have come to Financial Samurai since 2009. And I've seen so many examples of people who, I question myself, like, wait, how did you get $100 million severance package for blowing up the company? And, it's down 70%. Why do you get paid? And, I see people, let's say, who play in the NBA, and they didn't play for 3 years out of 4 years because they wanted to sit out. And I'm like, and you still got paid $40 million a year? My point is, there's a lot of money out there, and you got to believe you deserve to be rich as well. So part of that is empowering yourself with the knowledge from people who've been there before and who are willing to guide you and share with you their stories. There's a lot of tactics involved. And also, it's about having that mindset. It really is that mindset. Courage and the belief that you deserve to be rich, I think, is more than half the battle.
Yeah, man, good stuff. Now you wrote a fantastic new book, Buy This, Not That. Talk to us about the title, what's really behind the heart of it, and what was on your mind when you sat down for the reader to take away when they walk through the pages of your book.
Right. So I thought it was a great title because every single decision you have is a decision not to make that other choice. There's always opportunity cost when you're making a decision. So with Buy This, Not That, not only is it a book about helping you achieve financial independence sooner rather than later, it's about tackling some of life's biggest dilemmas. We all go through them because at the end of the day, money is there to try to provide for a better lifestyle, right? It's not just to hoard money and say how much money I got. I mean, if that's what your goal is for money, then there's probably some personal issues you got to deal with. So, using money to live a better lifestyle and tackling some of the biggest decisions so that you make optimal decisions versus suboptimal decisions. And I believe we should all think in probabilities and not absolutes. And so, what do I mean by that? So instead of thinking you need 100% certainty to make that investment or to ask out that girl or boy or to apply for that job or to buy that house or whatever that is, that there's uncertainty, think about probabilities. Think about using a 70-30 decision making framework where I say, if you believe there's a 70% chance or greater you're going to make the right decision, go for it, while having the humility and understanding, knowing that 30% of the time you're going to mess it up, right? But you're going to learn from your mistakes and get better.
Good stuff. Now, you talked to us about how Financial Samurai started in the midst of a global financial economic crisis. At the time of this recording, signs are pointing toward a global financial economic crisis. How has coming through that informed how you're showing up, how you're strategizing, how you're thinking financially now?
So we all know that part of investing is the price of admission is occasional loss. And so if you look over the long term, S&P 500 has returned about 10% on average since 1926. The bond market has returned about 5% on average since a similar time period and so forth. And so now the good times are kind of over for now, right? We had tremendous amount of economic stimulus since 2020, and now the Fed is taking away the punch bowl, hiking rates, and so money is getting more expensive. Risk assets are getting less expensive because they're selling off aggressively. And so, what I want to do with my book and with my readers and listeners is to develop a framework. So, no matter what type of environment we're in, whether it's a bull market or a bear market, if you asset allocate based on one of the three frameworks that I have, and you invest based on your risk tolerance, things should turn out fine in the long run and in the medium run. In the short run, it's uncontrollable. But the key is to stay the course and believe in the long run and believe in your system. So if you're a basketball fan, like the Philadelphia 76ers say, trust in the process. The idea is to trust in the process with the frameworks that I've provided, because over the long run, things will work out well.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, where would you want somebody to begin this journey? They may have done this or that. They may dabbled in budgeting. They may have dabbled in investing. They may have a little bit of savings, and they're just wondering. They may have on their heart like, I'm ready to finally get a hold of my finance. I'm ready to really grab a hold and move this generation that I'm in to a place that my family hasn't seen before from a financial standpoint. How would you encourage them to just begin the journey?
Right. So you begin your journey by figuring out your goals, and then you reverse engineer how are you going to get there. I have a saying, and that goes, if the amount of money you're saving each month doesn't hurt, you're not saving enough. Too many people wing it when it comes to their finances. They wake up 3, 5, 10, 20 years later and they wonder where all their money went. So it's imperative to have your goals set out and that plan, and to start with budgeting and savings, right? If you can get your budgeting and savings down pat, then it frees up your time to take the offense. So budgeting and savings is defense. You need to get that down pat, and that's a default setting for people who are achieving financial independence. So you know where your expenses are going. You're trying to save as much as possible. My recommendation is to max out your tax advantaged retirement accounts and then try to save at least 20% after contributing to your tax advantage accounts and after taxes. Because if you want financial independence, you really need to build that taxable portfolio, because the tax advantage portfolio can't really be touched usually until 59 and a half. Or if you use the rule of 55, you can touch it sooner. So it's really getting that foundation right of defense, right? Because so long as your defense is good, then you can play offense. And playing offense is about investing wisely, asset allocating based on your risk tolerance, raising your day job income because you're your biggest moneymaker, and building alternative income streams outside of work. It's very a long journey and it's complicated, but that's how you got to start.
And the key is that it's a journey. It's not I snap my fingers and all these things are in place. It's putting one brick at a time in place, making sure it's solid, making sure it's sealed, and then moving on to the next brick. Correct?
Correct. And just listening to your podcast and being surrounded by other people talking about building wealth, getting paid, promoted, investing, that is really important, because even though the topic we're discussing might not be relevant to you, because we're all different ages, we all have different goals, just hearing it kind of perks you up and makes you pay attention more. You're like, oh, well, let me check my investments, or, oh, how much did I spend yesterday or this week? So just being around people who want to achieve what you want to achieve is really valuable.